Going into this episode, I was extremely nervous and wondering just how were they going to handle and follow up everything that happened in the previous episode. Especially because I'm someone who really didn't like the previous episode. Granted, it was partly because of the adaptation, but I still had mostly negative thoughts about the contents of the previous episode. And that's why I was genuinely surprised by how well the situation was handled in this final episode. I still have some minor gripes, but this was an incredible finale to, in my opinion, the best Mushoku Tensei season so far. And if the light novel readers are to be believed, then the already announced season 3 is going to be even better. Even though we've known that the series is gonna have a complete adaptation, it's always nice to get that confirmation, especially right after the season ends. But enough about the future, and now let's talk about the incredible finale to season 2. The episode starts with Rudy rushing back to his house while thinking back to Man God's words and realizing that even though he felt sad about Paul's death, it wasn't regret. He started to think that something might have happened back home, and bro was straight up gonna have a heart attack after realizing that no one was at home. Thankfully, it was just a fake out and everything is fine. At least for now, that is. Which really makes me wonder if Man God thought that Rudy was gonna have regrets about Paul's death, or if the actual regret has yet to come. And I personally feel like the second option is way more likely because Rudy wasn't supposed to come home for 2 years if he went to beggar it through normal methods. And if we're about to get something more painful than Rudy losing his arm and both of his parents, then I am honestly not prepared for the future of the series. I genuinely thought that Paul's death and Zenith's condition were gonna be what he has regrets about, but it seems like that might not be the case. Moving on, I also really love Sylphie's new design. She somehow managed to become 10 times more beautiful and mature looking in the span of a few months. I didn't mind the short hair, but she looks really good with the new hairstyle. And then we have the talk. I was nervous throughout this whole talk, especially because he was eventually gonna have to talk about Roxy. As expected, Norn had the most emotional reaction to the news, and her breaking down was really sad. But for me, Aisha finally breaking her perfect sister persona and crying was a really underrated moment for me. I really hope she eventually starts to stop being scared to show her emotions and starts to think of herself as a family member and not as a maid. Norn taking Paul's sword was something I really wasn't expecting. I wonder if she's only gonna have it as a memento or actually gonna use the sword. It would honestly be really cool to see her fighting in the future, especially because I never really expected to see her learning to use a sword. Another thing I really appreciate throughout the whole talk is Norn trying to blame Rudius, but stopping herself after seeing his hand. Also want to give props to our voice actress, Saya Aizawa, for an incredible performance throughout the entire episode. And after everyone aside from Roxy leaves, it's finally time for the juicy drama. I'll be honest, I had a feeling Sylphie wasn't going to be mad, and that's exactly why. I really appreciate Norn absolutely cooking the shit out of Rudius and Roxy. Before watching the episode, I thought that Rudy wasn't gonna have any opposition because of Sylphie's personality, and that's part of the reason why I was so worried about how they were going to handle it. And Norn spitting facts and cooking Rudius was just the conflict I needed for this whole plotline to not feel too convenient, while still keeping the characters faithful to themselves. It's honestly one of my favorite moments of this season, and a scene I really appreciate. Norn is effectively used as a stand-in for the author and audience, acknowledging that Rudy was indeed an asshole to Sylphie. But her being a follower of Millis also makes you realize that this really is a fantasy world with different religious beliefs, and something like polygamy is way more common. I saw some people saying that they didn't like how Sylphie was completely fine with polygamy without even putting up a fight, but honestly, I kind of appreciate that because it would be out of character for her, and I feel like if she was opposed to it initially, it would just make people hate Rudius and call it bad writing for her to eventually give in. I'm still not a huge fan of how everything happened, but I feel like the author did the best he could to handle this situation in a satisfactory way, at least personally. Then we have the birth of Lucy, which was a really cute moment and honestly surreal to see. I still can't believe that I'm watching a story where the main character has an actual kid, and as far as I'm aware, we're not even 50% done with the entire story. That's just crazy. And then we finally have the graveyard scene to end the episode. This was honestly such a beautiful moment that really encompasses what the entire story is about. Rudius acknowledging that, deep down, he's still a brat who was using memories of his past life to act grown up, is one of the most important moments in the entire series. Same with him finally acknowledging Paul as his actual father, and him saying that he has to start growing up for his kid honestly got me really emotional. Even though Rudy has grown so much, it feels like this is just the start line, and that is just insane to think about. Yuiko Ohara's insert song paired with Rudy looking back at the grave was also really beautiful. And ending the episode with Rudius wanting to live life so he can die anytime without regrets was just absolutely perfect. We also had a backshot of Eris, and I'm just hoping that we'll get to see her soon. And those are my thoughts as an anime only for the finale of Mushoku Tensei Season 2. Really wasn't a fan of the previous episode, but this episode was honestly perfect. I really liked the way everything was handled, and the emotional moments of the episode really hit hard as well. Also, in case you're wondering, I am gonna be making a review of this season in its entirety. If I'm not lazy, it should be out within a week of this video. And I am gonna be reading the Mushoku Tensei light novel starting from volume 1. The first video is gonna be about the first or the first two volumes depending on how much I have to say about them, and depending on how well the video does, I'll either make more videos or read them on my own, while occasionally making some videos on volumes I have something I want to talk about. And that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. Shout out to anyone still watching this section of the video, and comment below if you're someone who watched my videos on every single episode this season. Thanks for all the support, have a nice rest of your day, and hopefully see you guys in my next video.